like we're back in the studio. Los Angeles, 1997.
That's a good enough.
Brett Gurewitz behind the controls. It's Brett. I don't need to tell the truth, but I never lie. I don't need to bow to you. You're just passing by. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you. Get inside my troubled mind with all of your threats. Sometimes I think I was blind. Not before we met. I never wanted to be the one that you depend for your life. When you cry, it smells like soup. Sound like show tonight. Never feel how I stay all night. I gotta ride. Each time I stay all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night. You're an evil little girl. I'm a twisted man, tearing through your perfect world. Make you understand. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you and do the things you do. Stay all night. I've got to ride. Each time I stay all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all. I would never treat you bad. You deserve the best from me. If you want to keep your place, you on yours. Yeah, Todd wrote this one.
Yeah. You think?
This is not mine. Stand all night, I gotta ride. Each time I stand all night, no, I just might. You make me stand all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stand all night. I'm gonna stand all night.
R.I.P. Round Robin. Your questions, comments, wagers, give us a reason. Sleeper fantasy play, your best alternative line, whatever you have. Text the Round Robin 757-354-5517.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight's last gleam, whose prospects and bright stars through the perilous fight, for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, take us as stars and moon and the yet wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
You are tuned in to the Round Robin with Stephen Murray on Deep End Broadcasting.
these streets, nobody left to spend. Still thinking about the night before my brain is on the bed. Way up ahead, I see the crowd flashing through the lights. I'd rather see the guy that tells
All right, welcome. Special Saturday edition of the Round Robin. We are here for all your gambling needs. But here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and log off real quick. We have audio technical difficulties with the local provider right outside on the telephone line. So I want to see what's going on here. We have Dave Grande lined up to come right up. Let me go ahead and end this, and we're going to restart the stream in a few minutes as soon as I get a chance to troubleshoot. In fact, maybe what I'll do is go ahead and send you to a long commercial, and we'll go ahead and keep you on here. So stand by, and we will be back right after this. Dependable Solutions can provide all voice-over services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full-script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517.
Know your gambling limits. Don't ever bet what you can't cover. Wagering on sports is only fun when you do it the right way. Not every bet will win. When you get on a bad run, know it and avoid trouble. Know your gambling limits.
owned and operated, CP Shuckers Cafe and Raw Bar specializes in delicious cuisine, refreshing drinks, and a laid-back atmosphere. We opened our doors in 1995 and have enjoyed being a place to either relax or celebrate ever since. Whether you are in the mood to indulge in a great meal with your friends and family or watch the game, we promise that our inventive menu, attentive service, and skilled bartenders will have you truly satisfied. Both of our locations have spacious outdoor patios for enjoying the breeze and catching a little sun. Our friendly staff at CP Shuckers will make your next dining experience a pleasant one by delivering personal care. We are open until 2 a.m. Full menu will be served until 10 p.m. and late night limited menu until 1 a.m. For larger parties, please give the location of choice a call. Pacific Avenue, 757-425-8676 or Shore Drive, 757-412-2929. More information at cpshuckers.com. Thank you for your continued support and have a shuckin' good time.
Control your alcohol. Don't fight. Don't drink and drive. Your one punch could kill someone. It happens. You're behind the wheel. You may think you are fine, but then the other driver is under the influence of texting, and then you are done. Control your alcohol.
Dependable Solutions can provide all voiceover services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517.
Know your gambling limits. Don't ever bet what you can't cover. Wagering on sports is only fun when you do it the right way. Not every bet will win. When you get on a bad run, know it and avoid trouble. Know your gambling limits.
You said it was a waste of time. You said that I would change my mind. You said I'd lose my only chance to go and get out. It turns out you don't really know what you've been missing, my friend. And you might have her now. I got something better. Never took a chance on fate, and more comes to those who wait. And if there is a lady luck, I'll never better. You never get a chance for life unless you live it, my friend. And you might have her now. I got something better. You said it was a waste of time. You said that I would change my mind. You said I'd lose my only chance to go and get out. It turns out you don't really know what you've been missing, my friend. You might have her now. I got something better. You might have her now. I got something better. You might have her now. I got something better.
Family owned and operated, CP Shuckers Cafe and Raw Bar specializes in delicious cuisine, refreshing drinks, and a laid-back atmosphere. We opened our doors in 1995 and have enjoyed being a place to either relax or celebrate ever since. Whether you are in the mood to indulge in a great meal with your friends and family or watch the game, we promise that our inventive menu, attentive service, and skilled bartenders will have you truly satisfied. Both of our locations have spacious outdoor patios for enjoying the breeze and catching a little sun. Our friendly staff at CP Shuckers will make your next dining experience a pleasant one by delivering personal care. We are open until 2 a.m. Full menu will be served until 10 p.m. and late night limited menu until 1 a.m. For larger parties, please give the location of choice a call. Pacific Avenue, 757-425-8676 or Shore Drive, 757-412-2929. More information at cpshuckers.com. Thank you for your continued support and have a shuckin' good time.
Control your alcohol. Don't fight. Don't drink and drive. Your one punch could kill someone. It happens. If you're behind the wheel, you may think you are fine, but then the other driver is under the influence of texting, and then you are done. Control your alcohol.
This is the Round Robin on the Deep End Broadcasting Network, live from the beautiful coastline of Virginia Beach, Virginia, the United States of America. It is 11:21 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on to discuss, man, what a great time of the sports year. We have bowls, we have NFL football on Saturday. NBA is getting a little bit interesting. Hockey has been good. For the next 2 months, we are loaded up, and then March Madness after that. Great time with the sports year for sure. And to discuss the Saturday NFL slate and the rest of our games we usually like to talk about, Dave Grande joins us from Field Level Media. Dave, recap real quick since we covered the Niners a lot, obviously, back to last Thursday night. I saw one of these funny little memes online there, and the picture depicted this. It was Kyle Shanahan as the parent in the swimming pool with arms wide open to the little kid jumping off the ledge, Brock Purdy. Meanwhile, in the picture was Jimmy Garoppolo, who was the kid drowning in the deep end. And then the other picture was a skeleton wearing a crown with jewels in a rocking chair at the bottom of the ocean. And the name on that was Trey Lance. Is that an accurate depiction with the way that Brock Purdy's playing right now?
Well, I think it's a little early to say. I think the 49ers have been a little lucky. One play in that game Thursday night could have turned the game completely around, and that's the interception that the Diggs dropped when Seattle was still in the game. You got to remember, Seattle only lost that game by one score. And if that play, instead of the 49ers going down and scoring a touchdown, if Seattle gets that ball, and even if they don't score, that's just one fewer score for the 49ers. I don't know. I don't think we know quite yet what to expect from this new quarterback. What we do know is that the 49ers are a very, very well-rounded team in terms of what do you chalk up this last win to? Well, certainly the quarterback played a part, but they've got an elite running back. Their offensive line gave the quarterback a ton of time, which is going to be a big factor down the road because the 49ers offensive line is by no means considered elite. And then their defense on every level. They get a good pass rush. Their linebackers are everywhere. Oh, and for crying out loud, the job they did on the outside receivers, Seattle's got elite outside receivers, and they were getting, Geno was getting decent. It wasn't like he was under constant pressure all night. It just seemed that, 25 different times he dropped back. He had time. You're looking down the field for someone, and he just didn't find anybody. And that, and we saw Travarius Ward, basically locked up on Metcalf the entire game. That's not easy to do. I think what we learned in that game is, there's about 6 49ers who made the All-Pro team on that night alone. And when you've got so many different things going for you, you didn't even have Deebo Samuel in there. It makes it a lot easier on the quarterback. Plus, you've got this coach who's been able over the years to make Jimmy Garoppolo look like he's a serviceable quarterback. And I'm really not sure that he is. I don't think he's ever been an average NFL quarterback. And this guy's come in, and I'm not sure that this guy is an average NFL quarterback either. I'm kind of, I thought to myself, we're out here in California, and Cal had a quarterback last year by the name of Chase Garbers, who's a very similar quarterback to Purdy. And 4 years of college, decent stand-up quarterback, a little bit of a scrambler. Was a guy who could have been the last pick of the draft. Ended up going in free agency, and now he's like the third stringer for the Raiders. But it's like, if the 49ers had drafted Garbers instead of Purdy, would we be saying the same things about Garbers right now?
Right,
and
right.
I have a feeling the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
So I'm not sure. It's going to be really interesting to see. And obviously, we'll see down the line here how things turn out. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens next year. Because they built up Trey Lance so much. They spent a ton of draft capital to get him. It was all about him going into this season, how he was going to kind of usher in a new type of offense for the 49ers, kind of a modern day offense. And that's gone out the window. I mean, they've reverted back to Tom Brady style, throw the ball short, run the ball a lot. And, and when Lance comes back next year and he's healthy, obviously he takes them to the Super Bowl, takes them to the NFC Championship game. It's going to be really hard to say, okay, well, thanks for your work, but we're going back to the other guy who, we don't know anything about. So, anyway, it's, I think their situation is very interesting, but I do think it's precarious. I do think that we saw this in the, we've seen this in every game he's quarterback so far, that, Purdy's done a good job, but he's thrown that one or two passes that you think, oh my God, they got so lucky that, they dropped the ball. And that pass in a tight playoff game against the Cowboys, against the Eagles, that gets intercepted, that loses you a championship. So, like I said, it's, I think the guy's been an incredible story so far, but I wouldn't give him too much of the credit.
If Jalen Hurts, to me right now, is the obvious MVP, but if somehow he melts down in December and maybe somehow Philly fumbles that division away to Dallas, which that could happen. Dallas is still a couple games back, and they only a couple games back with a matchup still to play in Dallas as well. Can McCaffrey, in true terms of what an MVP player does for a team, the way that he's strengthened the 49ers and just makes them that much more lethal, what kind of case may McCaffrey make for MVP if Hurts has a tough stretch down the road?
Well, what is funny about that statement there, I thought you were going in a completely different direction, because I was just listening to talk radio yesterday, and they were saying, what are the chances that Nick Bosa wins NFL MVP this year?
Oh, yeah, he's great.
And I thought, no. I first thought Jalen Hurts is going to get every vote.
Right.
So we're not even going to know, who finishes in second, probably. But there's such a big gap between first and second. But that's kind of my point about the 49ers, is who is the MVP of the team? Obviously they've brought in this quarterback who's made a world of difference for them, but that's only because they brought in a running back, 6 games ago or 8 games ago, whatever it was, who's made a world of difference for them. But let's be realistic. The defense is the MVP of this team, and they've got stars at every level of that defense. I just think it's almost impossible to determine who's the team MVP, let alone say, okay, now, where does that guy stand in the league MVP voting? I just think there's too many cooks. I can't imagine any 49er guy. It might be one of those things where if you voted for a top 10 MVP, that, 5 or 6 different guys get votes. And then your coach is going to get, coach of the year votes if they won 7 in a row. Imagine going in, 3, on a complete winning streak going into the playoffs. The coach is going to get MVP votes. You've got a defensive coordinator who they're building up as a head coach, for another team next year. They just got, an abundance of MVP type candidates. So to answer your question, I don't know. I can't say that McCaffrey would be a candidate.
You watch a lot of football. You've seen all these elite defenses over the year. Is this Niners team top 5, top 3 even?
Certainly the way they've played the last 3 or 4 weeks, has been as good as you would see, basically, at any level, at any team. But it's, I look back at that Kansas City game that wasn't all that long ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was 8 games ago because they won the last 7 games, and Kansas City killed them. Kansas City made their defense look silly. Just before that, the Atlanta game, Atlanta ran the ball on them. And I think that's how, I think that's where they're most vulnerable, is against the run. I mean, say what you want about Bosa being this great defensive player. It's all about his pass rush. And I think that the teams are going to have to run the ball effectively to do well against the 49ers. But we've seen that some teams have been able to do that. And then you just wonder, this is Seattle really any good? Last week, they're playing a Tampa Bay team that's leaking oil. I think the week before that, they played the Saints team, that's had a terrible offensive season. I don't know that it's so much, wow, this defense is just incredible. Nobody's doing anything against them. Or maybe it's the other way. It's like, let's wait and see until they play Minnesota or Dallas or Philadelphia, or one of these high power offensive teams, and see how that game becomes a little different, becomes a game where you can't run the ball and run it and kill the clock and not keep your defense on the field, very long. So, you get into a different kind of game, and it forces you to throw the ball more. Now you're making more mistakes. Now your defense is in worse field position. I don't know. I think their defense is really good, but I wouldn't put them in all-time levels quite yet.
Okay. All right. Let's get down to business. We have 3 games today. Good job, I think, by the NFL to give us 3 games on a Saturday. I think in recent years, we've only had 2, I think, late afternoon and a night game. And, several years ago, a lot of people don't remember, but you'd get the Saturday 12:30 Eastern Standard Time kickoff and the 4 p.m.er. Famous play, too. I think that in that 4 o'clock window on the Saturday where Steve Young had that amazing scramble against the Minnesota Vikings defense, that iconic play you kind of see all the time on the NFL channels. Okay, so 1 o'clock, we go to Minnesota, 3.5-point favorites are the Vikings, 47.5 is the over-under. Here come the Colts. Here comes Jonathan Taylor. A lot of people at this point, if you're paying attention to the media just in general, think the Vikings are overrated. I'm not prepared to say that. They're a decent football team. Saturday, we all know about him as the head coach. Interesting game here at 1 o'clock. I myself are going to look at some Justin Jefferson props. But what about you, Dave? What's your take on this?
Well, my first take on this is the very first thing you said is that, okay, let's look at this game without putting any team names on there. You've got an NFC quote-unquote power, the number 2 seed going into the playoffs right now, a team that's running away with its division, high-powered offensive team, at home against an AFC team that's fired its coach, that wants to get rid of its quarterback, that's having a terrible season, that's coming off a loss of 35 points. And it's like, oh my God, what is this game doing on TV? This game's got 41-7 written all over it. Now, who are these 2 teams? Well, one is Minnesota, who hasn't done anything right for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And the other one is Indianapolis, who's got this coach that's kind of a mystery man that people think, might be a great motivator, might be someone to get them fired up for a game like this. How in the world is Minnesota a 3.5-point favorite in a game like this? They should be a 23-point favorite in a game like this. And this tells you all, and I'm not saying the odds are wrong, but this tells you everything you need to know about this game. Is Minnesota is in terrible shape. I don't know what's happened to them. Obviously, their defense has been really bad. Fortunately for them, they're playing a team today that doesn't have a great offense, but that hasn't really seemed to matter. Teams are, Minnesota's played New England in that Thanksgiving game and made New England, look like they were the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think that's kind of, to me, what makes this game interesting. The fact that the Colts had a bye last week, I think also makes this game interesting because, as I mentioned with Saturday, he came into a terrible situation. The very first game out, they played the Raiders in Las Vegas, and they went in there and they won that game. And then they played a couple of decent games after that. And then they played a couple of terrible games, including the last one, which was probably the worst played game in the NFL this season. And I think that the shine kind of came off of, his star over the course of those 5 weeks or whatever it was. But now they've had a bye. Now they've got nothing to play for the rest of the season except this game. And it's a national game. It's here, is Jeff Saturday really an NFL coach? And this is his time with a week off to demonstrate, you know what, I can get my guys motivated for this game. You watch this game. We're going to beat Minnesota, this number 2 team in the NFC. We're going to fire up and we're going to come out to play where no other team in our situation would do that. And I have to expect that to happen. I think that Minnesota's defense is so bad that Indy will be able to score on them. They will be able to run the ball. They will be able to get their terrible passing game going a little bit. I wouldn't think that they'd be able to. So, I mean, for me, Indy and the owner go together in this game. If Indy's able to score points, which they will be, they're going to force Minnesota to score points, but I think eventually they will be able to do. I think it could be a very fun game, especially compared to the other two today. And we'll talk about that in a minute. This is going to be the game from a fantasy perspective. If you're just playing in a one-day fantasy league where you're drafting guys only for today's games, you'd want to stockpile as many guys as possible from this one, because this is the game that has the potential to be 28-27.
Yeah, there could be a lot of points here. Let's see here. If we look at an alternate total as well, because you just mentioned 55 points, I think that's fair to say in this game as well. Just like everything that you just said, Jonathan Taylor inside there could really have a big day if the Vikings start to see him come downhill. But if we go to an alternate total points, then we're looking at, let's see here. Well, you get 2-1 to get to 54 points anyway. I mean, that's a pretty good payout.
Yeah, you know what? The problem is the Colts have a ceiling. The Colts are not going to be a team that scores 41 points in this game. I'm stretching it to say they're going to get to 28. Right. It might be their best offensive game of the season, and that's only because Minnesota's defense is so bad. I can't really imagine that there's going to be 60 points scored in this game. At the same time, I can't imagine that there's going to be less than 45. I think it's going to fall into that range. You mentioned the total. I think it was like 47.5.
Yes, sir. Yep.
That's on the low end of my range, so I would think that would go over. The funny thing is, I'm thinking about how this game is going to play out. Minnesota has to come out and try to establish their running game. Dalvin Cook has been, it looks like he's completely run out of gas. And I'm not sure that that's the case. Maybe they've de-emphasized him a little. Maybe the offensive line hasn't been as good. Maybe it's just the teams they've been playing. They're at home. They're on their surface. They're playing a bad team, a decent defensive team, but in general, a bad team that they should go into this game thinking, we can wear these guys out. We need to get Cook back on his game again. We're going to come out. We're going to run, and establish our ways against them. Meanwhile, you've got the Colts, who, like I said, coming off this embarrassing game, and their coach, who's an offensive lineman, telling them we need to establish our running game. This is, we need to keep their offense off the field. We're going to come out and we're going to run and establish our, offensive game. And so what you could see in this game is a lot of running early on in the game. Two teams bullheadedly trying to show that we're going to wear you down with our running game. I can see the first quarter of this game being very low scoring. The team gets the opening kick, a 5-minute drive, they kick a field goal. The other team gets the ball, they run the ball down the field, they punch. The other team gets the ball, they run up to the 50, they punt. Next thing you know, the first quarter's over and it's 3-0. And then once they've decided, all right, this really is working well, what are we doing? Especially Minnesota comes out throwing the ball, then you get your offensive explosion. But if I were kind of taking a long shot in this game on something, I would look at the under in the first quarter of this game, and just because I think that's the way both teams are going to approach this game.
Jonathan Taylor to get 125 yards is 4-1, 8-1 if you think he can have a big day and get 150 plus yards on the ground. Is that achievable?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that Minnesota's going to score points, and I think it's going to come through their passing game. But I think that the Colts, you can't just be one dimension. I mean, Minnesota's, like I said, the number 2 team in the NFC. Some terrible AFC team is not going to come into their building and just ground it out against them. They're not that bad. I think eventually, especially when Minnesota can't stop the pass either. I think that eventually Indy will throw the ball. I think they'll have surprising success throwing the ball. I think that, if you were looking for a surprise element in this game, I mean, I think you would look for Pittman. Pittman's passing yards total. You'd look for Paris Campbell to get a touchdown. I just think Indy's going to score at least 3 touchdowns in this game. And they're going to have a lot of opportunities. Indy's got an elite kicker, McLaughlin, who should be able to score big points in this game. I think that I would rather, instead of, taking the quote unquote favorite, Taylor at this huge number, and I would rather say, no, I'm going to go for the Pittman over 100 yards receiving, Campbell to score a touchdown, McLaughlin to score more than 10 points. I mean, these kinds of elements of this game, because I think that is where this game is going to end up, as opposed to where, as I mentioned before, where I think it's going to start.
Okay, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time in Cleveland. Deshaun Watson and the Browns -2.5, over under 38.5, hosting the Ravens. Looks like the quarterback will be Huntley for the Ravens. I think you just kind of barked on this a couple minutes ago, Dave, but you're not expecting much in terms of points in this one, huh?
Well, you skip back to something you said a while ago about the NFL putting 3 games on Saturday. When you put 3 games on Saturday at this time of year, one of them is going to be bad weather. And you're hoping that 2 of them aren't bad weather. And unfortunately, both games that you've put outdoors today have a chance to be really bad weather. Now, this game, it may not matter because you've got Baltimore, who can't do anything offensively without their quarterback. And then you've got Cleveland, who's brought in a new quarterback that hasn't really helped them offensively yet. And now you mix in the bad weather, and this game could be really ugly. And we've seen this with Baltimore in recent weeks. It's become a field goal fest for them. They're just good enough because their defense gets turnovers, because they get a nice kickoff return. They get a couple of decent offensive plays. They get themselves in field goal position a lot, and Tucker becomes their most valuable player. But you even wonder if the wind is swirling, and this is Cleveland. The weather could be really ugly. Is it really going to be a good game for kickers? Even Baltimore finds a way to win games like this. They're motivated to win. I don't think Cleveland has any motivation. I think they kind of, whatever they had, they left on the field last week, and that wasn't even really inspiring the way they lost to Cincinnati last week in a game they really needed. I think Baltimore's going to find. I'm surprised Baltimore's not favored in this game. They'll find a way to win a game like this. But I think it's going to be, a very, very low scoring game where you're going to have to run the ball effectively, to do any kind of scoring in this game. And I'm not sure either team's going to be able to do that. I mean, obviously Chubb is a decent running back for Cleveland, but not elite. And Baltimore's defense is going to be ready to stop him. And I think that Baltimore, with all the injuries they've had at running back, and Dobbins is playing, and I don't know, and they have no quarterback. I think there's you're going to see, especially if the weather's bad, two teams that are, especially Baltimore, they have to play this way. Just keep running the ball and punt it and hope your defense gets a turnover or two. Cleveland's the type of team that'll give you a couple, and I think that'll probably be the difference in the game. I think it'll be a very low-scoring game.
If the Ravens are fully healthy, what do you see long-term from them in terms of success this year's season, going into the playoffs? Tough team for me to handicap. I think I can't get it either.
I'm not a big fan. I think that I think the quarterback is overrated. I think that when Jackson came into the league and had some decent seasons, better than decent seasons, really good seasons, it really looked like they were a team that that could kind of be a new wave offensive team. But I say the same thing about Michigan, University of Michigan. With the other Harbaugh coaching, these guys are more defensive oriented, more throw the ball to the tight end, more run the ball. I don't really think they really want to open it up and play recklessly on offense. They'd rather their defense and their kicking game. They're great on special teams. Baltimore, I don't think their offense is built to score a lot of points. And obviously Jackson in recent years has not, in my mind, is certainly not a top 10 quarterback. Now he doesn't have great, weapons either, especially on the outside. So I think they're really, even at full strength, they're a defensive-minded team that needs home field advantage, that needs a weather advantage in order to be successful in the playoffs. I just can't imagine them matching points with Buffalo or with Kansas City, even with Cincinnati, maybe even with the Chargers. I mean, these kinds of teams would just score too many points for them in a playoff type game. So I'm not a big fan.
Okay. And looks like we have snow in the early afternoon, tapering off around kickoff, low 30s the whole time. Sounds like a lovely day in Cleveland. Okay. Buffalo looks like they have a ton of snow on the ground already from the pictures I saw a couple hours back here this morning. Looks like it is definitely a Buffalo blizzard scenario. Hopefully the Dolphins bus can even get there. Wouldn't put me, I guess it's too late to kind of call that game for sure. But let's see here. The line for this, and I need to back out of my Baltimore stuff. All right, so the point spread is holding at 7. 43.5 is the over-under. That's shockingly high in terms of what I saw going on with the weather here just a few minutes ago, or when I last looked at it. But here it is. Dolphins, they're kind of stumbling. They had a tough trip out west. They're making just about as far of a journey as you can on the East Coast, going all the way from Miami to upstate New York. The Bills, I think we've kind of said it the whole year. I don't know if Allen's arm is lingering or what's going on there, but they just don't – they seem to have just something missing themselves. Every game in the world goes under for Buffalo as well. Dolphins won the last matchup in Miami, but that was a long time ago at this point. Interesting game. What do you see, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, really interesting game and, misplaced game. There's been a lot of talk why in the world would you schedule a game at Buffalo at night at this time of year? It's one thing to put it in the Sunday night spotlight where and this game is worthy of the Sunday night spotlight. These are two very entertaining teams that under, this game were at Miami. You would say, oh man, a fireworks game, both teams in the upper 20s, maybe even in the 30s. You'd see a total in this game over 50 probably. And a really showcase game for the league. You put this game on Saturday night, which is totally unnecessary. And I mean, even if this game were the first one on the schedule this morning, a 1 Eastern game, and you move the Minnesota game tonight, where there's obviously not going to be a weather factor because it's indoors, it would make a world of difference. And just, I mean, sure, it could snow as much and be as cold in the morning, almost as cold as it is at night, but at least you would improve your chances that you might actually see the sun at some point. I just think this is terrible scheduling for a really, really murky matchup for the league. And looking at the game, the problem with this game, in terms of trying to figure out how it's going to work out, is, okay, it's really cold, it's windy, it's snowing. What are you going to do? Well, obviously you're going to try to run the ball. But these are two terrible running teams, especially Miami. Miami's got to be the worst running team in the league. And they have no choice but to throw the ball. And Buffalo will try to run the ball, but they're not a good running team either. I mean, I don't know what the stats are, but it's just in terms of an average game, they would be a very below average running team. No star running backs in this game, no even average running backs in this game. So this game has to be a passing game. And the conditions say, no, this game has to be a running game. And so it could be one of those games where you watch the first quarter of this game and you've taken the under and you see that, oh my God, I wish I had doubled down on this because these guys need snowshoes. They can't move at all. Neither offense is doing anything. This game is going to end up 3-0. But then you see, because they're throwing the ball a lot in bad weather, oh no, they just sacked Tua. He fumbled. There goes the Buffalo guy running in for a touchdown. And next thing you know, oh, geez, there's Allen. He threw it right to the Miami guy. Touchdown. You see the types of scores where you think, oh, man, I'm going to lose this under because there's 3 defensive scores and all kinds of turnovers in the sloppy conditions because teams aren't running the ball. And you throw the ball in these conditions, you're as likely to throw it to the other team as you are to your own team. So I think this game could be really ugly in that sense. I just can't imagine that we're going to see a series where a team runs the ball 3 straight times. I mean, unless it's Allen faking the ball into the line and running it around the end a couple of times. But you don't want to really put him at risk that much. I mean, obviously he runs the ball enough already. You don't want to say, okay, we need you to run the ball more today when you've basically already clinched a playoff spot. There's not that much at stake in this game. I don't know. I just think that this, I think that it's a weird game where, as opposed to the Baltimore game against Cleveland, where at least you got Nick Chubb, at least you got Dobbins, you've got teams where, okay, guys, we're going to run the ball today. That's what we're going to do. In this game, you can't say that. I mean, Miami's not going to hand the ball to Wilson and Mostert, 10 times each. They just, they're not going to get back to the line of scrimmage. And so I'm very curious to see, A, how bad the weather is, and B, just how this plays out, because the style of play of these teams and what's being dictated by the weather are two polar opposite, no pun intended, things.
Defensive touchdowns in a weird weather game like this. Let's see. 8-1 odds for Dolphins defensive touchdown. 7-1 if you want Buffalo on a D touchdown.
You know, I mean, I'd certainly. I think that I'd be shocked in this game if there weren't a defensive score.
Right.
And that being the case, and you know, these things are generally unpredictable. You know, so especially in a game like this, defensive score could come basically on any play in a game like this. And I don't really see this game being a real one-sided game where one team is just forced to throw the ball, and so you pin your ears back, and you know, kind of like the 49er game became at the end, where you're just running after the quarterback, trying to knock the ball away, and you hope he throws it to your guy. I don't see this game ever getting to that point, but I just think that, I mean, literally every time the quarterback drops back to pass in this game, if the weather is as projected, I just would cringe. I just don't. I just don't think they're going to be able to pass the ball effectively, and and especially to a guy who's not used to these kinds of conditions. I mean, I know a lot was made about the Dolphins having hand warmers, heaters on their sideline in Los Angeles last week. Basically an indoor stadium. I know it's not covered, but it's like you need heaters in Los Angeles. Wait till you get to Buffalo next week, and Tua's back to pass, and he gets hit by somebody, and it's cold, and the ball slips out of his hand. Heck, you might see him wearing gloves in a game like this, where and that affecting the way you throw the ball. So I just think that both these teams have a chance to score defensively. I would put an equal amount on both teams and recognize that it's possible that they're both going to score defensive in this game.
Okay. Kansas City is at Houston tomorrow, Sunday, 1:00 Eastern game. The Chiefs minus 14.5 points on the road in Houston. Over under is 49.5. Cowboys were huge favorites against Houston, but they hung in there pretty good. The Texans did last week. I saw some crazy stat where I think the Texans are the best defensive team against the pass, which is kind of crazy if you think that. But the Chiefs are at the Texans minus 14.5, 49.5. Everyone's out for the Texans. No Pierce, no Nico Collins. Cooks is out too. What do you got for this one, Dave?
Well, I mean, first off, let me give you your math lesson for the day. You can get numbers to say pretty much anything you want them to say. If in fact the Texans are, good team against the pass, I will almost guarantee you that that's based on the fact that teams have thrown fewer passes against them because they're always ahead of them. And so, hey, they're only allowed 250 passing yards a game. Well, yeah, that's because other teams will only throw 12 passes a game against them. Look at some of the other stats. Yeah. Yards per attempt. Oh, yards per attempt. Yeah, no, they're the worst in the league. So I mean, anyway, that's my math education. Like you said, I don't see Houston being competitive in this game. And it's not because their defense is going to be overrun necessarily by the Chiefs, which they probably will be.
Right.
But it's because their offense just doesn't have the potential to match points at all. I think we're going to get into a situation where the Chiefs, get easily ahead. And then what do? They're not a team in that, well, let's get a lead and then we'll grind out the win, because they don't really have that kind of a running game. And so, but still, when you get ahead by 3 scores and it's the second half, that's what you do. So, and if the more effective you are doing that, then the lower the score becomes. Because you stop throwing the ball, you're not going to score points. The other team's not going to score points either. I think that I would never recommend laying 14.5 points in a game, and any kind of game like this, even though I could very easily see this game being 27-6 or 31-9 before it's done. And with Kansas City, it's hard to. We talk about this a lot over the years. It's hard to pinpoint. Well, who's going to be the guy, the standout offensively? Well, Kelsey will catch one, and Schuster-Smith will catch one, and McKinnon's coming on really well, but he's kind of he's an extremely inconsistent, guy. You'd want if McKinnon were more of a guy that you would think, okay, well, he's the backup running back. He's going to get all the carries in the second half when they get ahead. Plus, in the first half, he'll catch some passes. That would be the ideal guy that you'd want to key on the game like this. But unfortunately, he's not that guy. He's not a guy that will run the ball. And the second half, the Kansas City, they'll go to their third string running back as the guy to run out the clock. And so you can't even recommend that. So I don't know. It's I'd love to have Pacheco on my team in fantasy, just because as I said, I think Kansas City will get ahead. I think he'll get more running opportunities than he would in a normal game. But in terms of will Mahomes throw 4 TD passes against a bad team? Probably not. Will Kelsey have one of his monster games against a bad team? Well, no. Probably not going to play that much. And so you would look at a running back in a game like this, and I think that Pacheco has, of all their guys, even if he doesn't touch the ball in the fourth quarter, he's a guy who could put up really nice numbers in this game. And like I said, it is the fantasy playoffs start this weekend, and among a handful of guys in the league who I would not want to be going up against, he'd be one of them.
Pacheco plus 360 for 100+ yards tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. I mean, 100 yards is a lot of yards for him. 3.5 to 1 is not a huge price, but I think that it's, I think it's better than 50-50 that he goes over 100 yards.
Okay, all right. Let's see what else. Okay, down to the 4 o'clock. I think that's our only 1 o'clock game, but I'm not sure why these odds. That's the nature of the sports book, Dave. Every time you click, they take you to the next game coming up. So every time I click, I'm on the Vikings game. I'm like, what's going on?
Something we didn't talk about, and it's not worth talking about a lot. But the schedule of the games, today, is just I don't know. It's just weird to me. The teams that they. That you got 2 AFC teams playing at night. You got 2 AFC teams playing in the afternoon, and you got 1 AFC team playing, in the morning. 5 out of 6. And none of them are Western teams. And so it's. I mean, normally you get a better balance. Normally, where's the West Coast interest?
Would you have liked to see the Eagles-Bears at 4 o'clock today? Better option?
Well, I mean, no. I mean, again, that's at least that's an NFC game, and I mean, this is 49er territory. So the answer to your question is not what would I rather do, but what would the average 49er fan? Absolutely. They'd rather see the Eagles play the Bears this afternoon, because the Eagles are now a team the 49ers must target if they're going to advance in the playoffs. But it's just like I said, it's just and part of this is that we had 2 NFC teams playing on Thursday. I understand that, but still, you usually get a better balance. And then plus the fact is that you put a Western team, at home as one of your 3 games, you have one less worry about the weather. And unless you put it in Denver or something. So I don't know. It's just bad scheduling all the way around today.
Okay. All right. 4:00 Eastern Standard Time window tomorrow, Sunday, not today. We have. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and get this one out of the way. I don't even know what to think about this. Yeah, you know where I'm going, but Brett Rippon against Colt McCoy. I think McCoy's the better quarterback, if you give me a choice, I guess. But the Broncos are 1.5-point favorites, 36.5 over under in this game. Broncos finally found a little bit of offense with Jerry Jeudy last week, where they rallied to cover the spread actually against Kansas City. But Russell Wilson got his noggin knocked around, and although he's cleared, he's not going to play. I don't know, Dave. Go ahead. What do you got?
No, I agree with you. I mean, especially Arizona. No reason for them to show up for this game. No reason. And we already kind of saw last week where Hopkins, it looked like he was upset with the quarterback not throwing him the ball enough. And, it reminded me of what we saw in Denver early in the year. At least in Denver's case, they've kind of gotten around that. They kind of know who they are now. They've gotten, quote unquote, gotten rid of the problem. And the fact that Wilson's not playing, I think that'll help rally the rest of their guys and, give their defense a little more enthusiasm to, okay, you know what? We've been complaining about the quarterback being our problem all year. He's not here anymore. Here's our chance to prove that we were right. And against a very disinterested opponent. I would think that Denver would win this game. But they're not capable of scoring a whole lot of points. They did last week. Finally, Wilson got something going. But now you throw your backup quarterback in there. And this is, I'd say, a below average backup quarterback. I think, the Cardinals have an advantage at the quarterback position in this game. Not that that's really going to matter. My point is that I just don't, you switch quarterbacks in this game. I think Denver would win this game easily. But the way it is, he could be, the liability that keeps the Cardinals in the game. I can't imagine a whole lot of points being scored. And you're right with the first thing you said. The less we talk about this game, the better.
I'll go ahead and throw a parachute out there. At 400-1 odds, correct score, Broncos 13, Cardinals 9.
Well, that's like throwing darts. You're, more power to you.
And all those weird numbers actually pay pretty good if you think it's going to be that kind of game, for sure. Okay, let's get to a better game in Vegas. The Raiders hosting the Patriots. Playoff implications for the Patriots for sure. Maybe too late for the Raiders, but as we've mentioned in previous weeks, no one's ever out of it, it seems like, until they're going to be out of it here at the very, very end. But the Raiders are a favorite, -1.5. Over under a 44.5. Teacher against pupil, Belichick and McDaniel there. Interesting game. Patriots stay out West Coast after their win on Monday night, which was not an impressive win. When you ever see DeAndre Hopkins running around with the ball like a loaf of bread hanging out of his hand, he just basically handed the Patriots the win, I thought. But interesting game here. What's your take on this one?
Well, I'm bitter. Let's start with that. As I mentioned, the fantasy season, last week was the last week of the regular season, and playoff spots were on the line. And so the question is whether I was going in as the 3rd seed or the 4th seed in the 4-team semifinals. But anyway, it came down to that game. And I ended up losing that game because the other guy had New England's defense. And oh my God. I mean, again, it's when I saw that he had New England's defense, And I had Hunter Henry going in that game, and not that he had a huge game, but he scored enough points where it was going, all right, New England's defense is going to have to score at least 10 points in this game in order to beat
Yeah, and
me.
I think he
that
got
just
tackled
doesn't
at the
happen.
5 too. Didn't he get tackled inside the 10 on that
Oh,
long pass?
yeah.
Too?
Well, it turned out that didn't matter, but yeah, he
Yeah.
got tackled on like 3 yards, like on a long catch. But I mean, even the 49ers, as great as they were Thursday night in fantasy scoring, they scored 10 points. So, and that's what he needed in order to beat me last week with New England. And it's like, there's no way New England's defense is going to play as well as the 49ers did on Thursday night. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But you get the lucky bounce. You know, they throw the ball, like you said. Yeah, they throw the ball. He catches it. Whoops, he drops it. Oh, it just happens to be along the sideline where another guy can scoop it up and run it in. Oh, my goodness. There's 6 points right there. Now I'm totally screwed. And then, of course, the quarterback gets injured and the third play of the game. And here comes the backup guy. Well, he was doing okay for a while. You know, now he's immobile and he gets sacked right and left. And thrown in. Oh, it's terrible. I mean, excuse me. They not only scored 10 points, they scored like 18 points. And I quote unquote got blown out. So I go in this week as the 4th seed, and now I'm up against the big power in the playoffs. So I'm not happy about that. Okay, now that said, I can see a similar type of scenario breaking out in this game. The Raiders will try harder than the Cardinals did in that game, but New England's got the incentive. New England's got the better defense, and if we've learned one thing about Belichick over the years, if the other team has an outstanding weapon, he's pretty good about taking that guy out of the game and making you beat them in other ways. And so I don't think Adams is going to have a big game here. The Raiders are going to have to counter by Jacobs having a big game, and he's certainly capable. I think that the Raiders win this game is going to be because Jacobs has a monster game, and like I said, he's had a couple, especially recently. But I just think that the Raiders find a way to lose close games.
Right.
New England needs this game more. They'll, if push comes to shove, this is one of those games where the team that has the ball last, if New England has the ball last, they'll find a way to go down and score. If the Raiders have the ball last, they'll find a way to screw up. And so I think New England's going to win this game. I don't see it being especially high scoring. And I would think that both teams are going to, the team that runs the ball the best is going to have the most success in this game. And that's what gives the Raiders a chance because they have the best running back in this game. But I think that New England will find a way somehow, some way to win, a 20-17 type of game.
So here's my fantasy issue, which I am in the playoffs as well. Number one, Damian Pierce is out, so he's gone for me. I'm not going to have him. 2, Ramondre Stevenson is my running back. Who knows what he's going to do until just about game time. So I went ahead and I dumped my extra kicker and stuff. Went ahead and picked up who I could, and I got the other Harris, who had a decent game for New England. Against the Cardinals, not Damian Harris, Kevin Harris, I think the kid's name is, out of South Carolina. So I picked him up, but now it looks like Damian Harris will be healthy enough to play. So I'm not going to get the Kevin Harris carries like I was hoping with Stevenson being out. So I think my options at this point are this. I'm going to have to rely on Tyler Algier to have some kind of great game against the Saints behind Cordero Patterson. And then I'm probably gonna have to ride with the Kevin Harris or pull something out of my hat there. I did actually pick up the Houston backup running back as well, so I'm gonna have to throw him there into the fire. But that's a bleak situation for a playoff game. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say I'd love to be your opponent. But yeah, I mean, anytime you get involved with New England's running backs, you're asking for trouble. Just when one guy appears, like Stevenson, appears to be someone who's, oh man, they finally got themselves a back. Next thing you know, Harris comes back from his injury, and now they're sharing the ball. Then the other Harris comes in. He starts doing things. It's like, oh, my God. Why do I have 3 different Patriot running backs on my team when none of them are any good? So you tell you next lesson learned next year, no Patriot running back.
Yeah. Duly noted. But they have been a running back factory for sure for many, many years. They've had good running backs. Okay, let's get to our next game. This is an intriguing one to me. You seem to be the Tennessee Titans expert here on the show. The Titans with the 12th ranked defense overall. Derrick Henry was a little banged up, but hopefully he looks to be a little bit better after playing better last week. And then even in the loss to Jacksonville, he had a score there. But the Chargers, 28th ranked defense overall. Justin Herbert is looking good. He's got his weapons back. Interesting matchup here, Tennessee and the Chargers and the SoFi. What do you think about this one?
Well, this to me, this goes back to a lot of things I've said about the Titans. They are, I would say of all the teams in the league, they are the one who's most dictated by whether they're at home or whether they're on the road, because they are a team that needs to play a certain conservative style, get ahead at home, have the crowd and the weather and the field, in their favor. Excuse me. And kind of wear the other team down. But on the road, they don't get to play that way. The game, is more open. They're on turf. They're not a fast team. And when you're up against an offensive, power like the Chargers, they just can't match points with a team like that. And so, I mean, if this game were at Tennessee, I think Tennessee would beat them by 10 points. But this game being in Los Angeles, I think that LA is going to win this game by 10 points. I think that the Chargers are a team that I think I've mentioned this last week. The Chargers and Miami are 2 teams in the AFC that I wouldn't want to play in the playoffs, because they have the potential offensively, basically on any play and on any drive, to score a touchdown on you. And they're certainly in the Chargers case, they're getting healthier. And as they get healthier in the wide receivers, then of course the quarterback is better. Then Eckler, there's less pressure on him. I just think that they're a team that's starting to fire on most of their cylinders. I think that defensively, they're not good. And like I said, if this game were at Tennessee and Tennessee could get into their grinded out kind of game, keep the Chargers offense off the field, I think that, they'd be in trouble. But this game is not on the road. And I just think that the Chargers will find a way to put up enough points that Tennessee has to get out of its game plan and start throwing the ball around more, which they're not the worst passing team in the league, but they have issues in their passing game. They're not real healthy on the outside. They're not real good on the outside to start with. And so I think that the Chargers are going to win this game. I think they'll probably win this game by double figures.
All right. Anything else across the board that piques your interest fantasy wise? I know you're on the Lions a lot of times. But they got a tough matchup against a tough defense in the Jets. There's some other
and I've talked about the Lions every week. I'm less enthusiastic about them this week,
right?
Even though maybe I'm wrong about that, because the Lions, they've got an assortment of offensive weapons that might be unmatched in the league. In terms of, and it's overkill from a fantasy standpoint. I got DeAndre Swift on my fantasy team. I'm not even sure I can play him anymore because, they've got 2 other running backs that they mix in there. And, well, it's okay because Swift catches a lot of passes. Well, no, now they've got, the Williams guy from Alabama who's playing. Chark is back and he's healthy. They already got St. Brown. They've got other wideouts that they throw the ball to. It's like they've got, they've become like the Chiefs. Is that, they've got 8 offensive weapons, and each guy caught 3 passes. Well, that doesn't do you any good in fantasy. And they're on the road this week at a potential bad weather site. And so I'm kind of off their bandwagon this week. Although Goff's my quarterback, so I need to I need to stay on their bandwagon a little. The game I would talk about this week is one you mentioned before, and it's a critical game in the fantasy playoffs this week. It certainly affects me. And maybe I'm crazy, but I like the schedule. The Philadelphia game at Chicago.
Right.
If you're going up against, which I am, Hurts and Brown, the number 1 pass and catch tandem in the NFL this year. If you got both those guys on the same team in your fantasy league, that team better be in first place, because the best part about them is that you didn't have to draft them in the first or second round. And so this guy that I'm going up against in the playoffs, he's got Cook and Chubb as were first 2 picks in the draft, which, are kind of standard first and second round picks. So he's got 2-star running backs, and he's got the best pass catch, tandem in the NFL. And so he's been unstoppable this year. But they're at Chicago, and I love it. I mean, Chicago is you would hope, in my opinion, my hope is that it's going to be a bad weather game. It's a grass game. It'll slow them down maybe a little bit. I just don't think that Philadelphia is going to have one of their big offensive games. The Bears are, as usual, somewhat sturdy on defense, especially at home. They've seen the Packers and Vikings come to town with these kinds of offenses every year. I just think that if you happen to draw, the Hurts Brown team in your playoffs, count your lucky stars, because I think that you've caught a good matchup here. I don't think they're going to kill you. So I think that game, I wouldn't expect Eagles fireworks in that game. I think the Bears have a decent chance to upset them. I think the Bears have a decent chance to keep that game relatively low scoring.
I could see points in the Dallas-Jacksonville game. I could see some good fantasy opportunity there, to be honest.
Yeah, it's certainly, and that's, a lot of that's because of Jacksonville. They have really developed. Yeah, they have really developed a nice thing there. I don't know what happened at Detroit a couple weeks ago, but they've got a nice. I mean, the quarterback. When people talk about, well, what's the future of the quarterback position in the NFL, especially you see when someone like Brock Purdy comes into a situation and immediately becomes successful. You think, well, gee, why are we wasting first-round draft picks on guys like Fields, who are great scramblers? We're so captivated by their athleticism, their escapability, the fact that they can run, and did we not learn anything from in the Tom Brady era? That the smart quarterback, the guy that reads defenses, the guy who spent 4 years in college, that these guys can come in, and if you've got the right situation, these guys can be just as successful as any of these, mobile type quarterbacks. And so I think that I forgot where I was going with this, but the geez, help me out.
Jacksonville being good overall.
Oh, Jacksonville. I think that the ideal quarterback in the NFL moving forward is somebody like Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
I mean, he's mobile enough that he's not just a statue back there, but he's also someone who can make all the throws. And I guess you would say kind of the same thing about Herbert. He's a similar type of quarterback. This guy can get the ball down the field to the speed receivers, and and he's not going to run around like crazy. He's going to keep, he's a system quarterback. He makes smart throws. He makes good throws. This is the kind of guy, and wisely, he was the first pick of the draft in a draft that had a lot of these other, more mobile, more athletic, more, kind of the 22nd century type quarterbacks. And so anyway, my point is that Lawrence, he's really, he's finally developed into this kind of Herbert type of quarterback. And that, that makes Jacksonville dangerous against any opponent, even one like this, where you would think Dallas is a much better team, which they are. I think Dallas is going to be able to score points at kind of at will in this game, but I think Jacksonville will be able to counter with a lot of points. And I think you're right. This should be a very entertaining, very high, might be the highest scoring game on the board this week. And I would look for, big numbers in this game, especially in the passing game.
Okay, Dave, thanks a lot, man. Good luck on all your tickets this weekend, your fantasy playoff game, and enjoy all the action. We will take a break, and we'll be back right after this. Dave Grande with Field Level Media, man. Have a good weekend. Thank you. All right, man. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Yep. Yep, that was fun. Thanks. Bye-bye. Text the round robin your questions, comments, wagers. Give us a reason. Sleeper fantasy play, your best alternative line, whatever you have. Text the round robin 757-354-5517.
Control your alcohol. Don't fight. Don't drink and drive. Your one punch could kill someone. It happens. If you're behind the wheel, you may think you are fine, but then the other driver is under the influence of texting, and then you are done. Control your alcohol.
Know your gambling limits. Don't ever bet what you can't cover. Wagering on sports is only fun when you do it the right way. Not every bet will win. When you get on a bad run, know it and avoid trouble. Know your gambling limits.
It's like we're back in the studio. Los Angeles, 1997.
That's a good analogy.
Brett Gurewitz behind the controls. This is Brett.
I don't need to tell the truth, but I never lie. I don't need to bow to you. You're just passing by. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I come back to you. Get inside my troubled mind with all of your threats. Sometimes I think I was blind. Not before we met. I never wanted to be the one that you depend on for your life. When you cry, it smells like soup. Sounds like shonen knife. Never feel though I said all night. I got a right. Each time I stayed all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night. You're an evil little girl. I'm a twisted man, tearing through your perfect world. Make you understand. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I come back to you and do the things you do. Stay all night. I got it right. Each time I stay all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all. I would never treat you bad. You deserve the best from me. If you want to keep your place, you better get down on yours.
Yeah, Todd wrote this one.
Yeah. You think?
This is not mine.
Stayed all night, I got a right. Each time I stayed all night, no, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night.
R.I.P. Todd.
Family owned and operated, CP Shuckers Cafe and Raw Bar specializes in delicious cuisine, refreshing drinks, and a laid-back atmosphere. We opened our doors in 1995 and have enjoyed being a place to either relax or celebrate ever since. Whether you are in the mood to indulge in a great meal with your friends and family or watch the game, we promise that our inventive menu, attentive service, and skilled bartenders will have you truly satisfied. Both of our locations have spacious outdoor patios for enjoying the breeze and catching a little sun. Our friendly staff at CP Shuckers will make your next dining experience a pleasant one by delivering personal care. We are open until 2 a.m. Full menu will be served until 10 p.m. and late night limited menu until 1 a.m. For larger parties, please give the location of choice a call. Pacific Avenue, 757-425-8676 or Shore Drive, 757-412-2929. More information at cpshuckers.com. Thank you for your continued support and have a shucking good time.
She didn't bat an eye as I pack my bags to leave. I thought she would start to cry, sit around my room and weep. But you're the girl, she fooled me this time. She acted like I was the last thing on her mind. I would like to start all over again.
I feel like this song's always appropriate for whatever weird issues we have with this broadcast. And that was apparent. If you tuned with us earlier today, then you noticed it might have taken an extra minute or two. We had to play a few extra Pie Taster songs there and await the provider from doing some work right outside the studio. So we troubleshot that. And we are back and live as well. So Dave Grande, he was great. Good insight from him on today's games and tomorrow's slate. I am Stephen Murray. This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network. This is the Round Robin Saturday Special Edition. We have kickoff in 23 minutes. Nephew Dave is with us too. He's now tuning in from the tree lot. In fact, what I wanted to get into real quick before we moved on and talked about the games, and I didn't want to, have Dave Del Grande listen to this. So that's why we'll go ahead and talk about it now. But yes, sorry, people out there. We had to cancel the Christmas party. We have had it pretty rough in here lately. Temperatures still floating around 100 degrees. Some nasty little virus that's kind of got into the air. Most people have it around here. But we had to make that executive decision earlier in the week. We do not want to go out there and spread what we have going on with us outside the studio. In fact, Nephew Dave, who's maintained his health, isn't even allowed in the studio. So it's no fun because it's literally like 2 weeks long at least. So hopefully we're here at the very trail end of that. But still ringing a little bit of a temperature. So sorry. And we'll do the show tomorrow from the studios, 8:30 in the morning, Sunday still, till 11:30. We'll have to give you a full slate as promised. Maybe we get off a little bit earlier because Dave Del Grande came on today. We won't have him tomorrow. But the big deal is this, is we're not going to let you down completely. We will have the makeup party for sure. I will anticipate 100% health by the time Wild Card Weekend strolls around. If not, I guess we'll have to make it a Super Bowl party or something. But Wild Card Weekend, which is January the 14th, Saturday, games will start that day, probably about 4 o'clock, I think is what they'll do. The NFL starts at 4 or 4:30, one of the two. But we'll go ahead and broadcast live from CP Shuckers, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're still going to have our live broadcast party. And honestly, I think everyone's going to be Christmased out after tonight as far as the parties go. So trying to get people to come into a Christmas party at 8:30 in the morning on a Sunday, especially when the host is sick, doesn't sound like it's the greatest idea in the universe at this point. But make up for sure Wild Card Weekend. Nephew Dave, what's up, man? Okay, we have it's been a fun week for hockey, Nephew Dave. We'll discuss more about that on what the puck is going on Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But a fun week of hockey, Dave, right? Ovechkin, everything else going on in the NHL.
Game, and sometimes that kind of thing happens. You run into a goalie who just pursuing everything, and had it not been for that guy, a major milestone. He's one away from another major milestone. And as far as, a lot of teams on some ups and downs, the Bruins are still hot. So, yeah, lots to be talked about in the hockey world for sure. Now, which we'll get to Monday evening. So that should be an exciting show. Not that it usually isn't, but, with getting to the halfway point, things are ramping up, and we're trying to see who teams are, and some teams are hurt, some are healthy. So, yeah, lots of exciting stuff in the hockey room. We'll definitely get to that Monday evening.
Okay, let's get to business. We have 3 games today. Minnesota, 3.5, 46.5. Del Grande kind of likes the over. He kind of likes the Colts somewhat because Minnesota has been stinking up the joint, to be honest. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the Vikings on this side today. They only do have the 2 losses. So that tells me that they're winning games that they have to. I'm not sure how motivated this Colts team are, but they are coming off a bye. So that does make it interesting. So a good point made earlier about that. I'm gonna ride Justin Jefferson on his props. I'm gonna take him for a couple of scores. I'm gonna take him for over receiving yards as well, all the way up to 150 at a big number. I'm just gonna kind of hope for basically the horse that I've been riding most of the year, Justin Jefferson. I'm gonna hope he continues that trend today against the team I would love to see him continue that against, and that would be the Indianapolis Colts, as you'll never ever have any tears shed for the Colts on this broadcast. I'll tell you that for sure. I don't know, Dave. What do you think about this game?
Well, I was thinking about it this morning, and I'm going to have to swing Del Grande's way here. I could certainly see the over happening. I'd have to look at how much I want to move that. Maybe a slight alternate play coming up for me. But I tell you, I received a 25% parlay boost for touchdown scores over on my book. So I built a little freeway today, and no surprise to you here, Uncle Steve, Justin Jefferson is absolutely on that list, so I will be riding him today as well.
Yeah, I like Jefferson. He's a good player. He's fun. He could be the MVP maybe if Hurts has a bad stretch here down the end, and the Vikings continue to somehow win games and get the 1 seed. Could you imagine that? That somehow Minnesota ends up with the 1 seed still? Well, that would be weird. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's not impossible. I mean, anything can happen in these games, as we've seen. They're going to play for. They'll play for the 1 seed, I think, until they clinch it. Right? I mean, you have to. But Dallas could beat them. Maybe Justin Fields has a spectacular game, which he's capable of as well tomorrow. I mean, you never know. So just on the flip of a coin, just when everything looks like it's going so great, things can change in the NFL. And it is December football, and we are getting deep into December. I mean, it is December the 17th. We're almost here at Christmas already. But you would think the Eagles would be strong enough to just kind of win out, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of big boy football to go. Back to the Vikings, though. Man, Kirk Cousins is so terrible to bet on. I mean, it's never fun to kind of have him in your corner ever. But neither is Matt Ryan, and I'm going to go ahead and trust the Vikings at home today, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think that's a good play. It's worth noting the Vikings haven't, been playing as strong as they would like to of late. But just with this setup here, we know Cousins in prime time is not great. But I tell you, they have everything in the world, so to speak, to play for. So I got to think at a certain point they're going to pick it up and ride out
Jefferson, they get over 110 yards plus 142. 125 plus is 225 plus 225. And 150 plus yards for Justin Jefferson is a plus 490 payout. If you want him for a touchdown score today, and I'm going to, he seems to get tackled at the 3, just stuff like that. He doesn't get his touchdowns like he should. So I think he's due for a 2-touchdown game. It would be the moral of that story. In fact, I wouldn't. I could even see him scoring 3 touchdowns, but 20-1 for 3 touchdowns, maybe not so great. But a plus 410 for 2 touchdowns, I think I may give that a stab too. In fact, I did. I got a 2-touchdown prop on all these games coming up on the little round robin. So as we go, I'll discuss that more. But Justin Jefferson, chalk me in for him, at least in this case. All right. Okay, all right. All right. Interesting. Okay, let's get to the next game. 4:30, actually. 4:31, if you want to be technical. p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Browns hosting the Colts. Browns are minus 2.5. Over under is at 38.5. You know what? I'm going to just say that my man Nick Chubb shows up today. How about that? I'm going to look at some Chubb props, and I'm going to know that he's going to not play. He's going to play hard no matter what. But Chubb at 100-plus yards is at plus 310 against a good Ravens defense. Also, if you look at the Chubb 2-touchdown score prop, which there you go, Dave. I have that locked in as my number 2 slot for 2 touchdowns for Nick Chubb today, plus 550, but that's down. It was actually 6-1 odds when I grabbed it. So actually money coming in for Chubb to score 2 touchdowns. I could see that happening, but even Dobbins at 12-1 odds, I might have to add that on into a play as well, maybe with Jefferson, and throw Dobbins in there. We'll have to get that in before kickoff, maybe. What do you think, Dave? Browns, Ravens, weird game today at 4 o'clock. Maybe not much motivation for Cleveland.
We can definitely squeeze some value if we move that over just a bit. So that's something I'm going to be looking at. I haven't taken it yet just because I'm still kind of thinking on it and where exactly I want to move that all over. But I tell you what I did do in my touchdown score parlay is I'm going to take a shot on the tight end Mark Andrews, and he's at plus 195. Which I feel like is a good number. Yes, Lamar Jackson was out. So what better target, what better reliable target than Mark Andrews? I think he certainly gets some receptions today, and if they're in the red zone, you got to think they're going to be looking for him. So I really like the Mark Andrews at 195.
Wow, yeah, that's a nice price. I could see the Ravens definitely winning this game, but I'm self-admittedly the worst Ravens handicapper on the Deep End Broadcasting Network. So normally whatever I say for a Ravens game, but the opposite. I don't know. Huntley, he plays good as quarterback. He just does. And like you said, I like Mark Andrews. He's a good player. They just have that. I don't know what it is about Baltimore. They always have that physical presence about that. Even if they aren't the greatest defense, they still seem to be even good at their worst, if that makes sense. I'm not I can't say I'm a Deshaun Watson fan. I mean, that contract never made sense to me from the get-go. But I do like Chubb, and it is the only NFL game on at that time slot, and we have to have something going on. So I'm just going to ride it with Chubb. Maybe I'll play on the Ravens too. I don't know. I'm not super excited. Just because it's there, people, doesn't mean you need to bet on it, right, Dave? No, you're gambling.
It's kind of a weird game. And I'm with you, Steve, about that whole Watson contract. I was just, in my mind, like, what are y'all thinking?
Even just the money alone. I mean, I just don't think he's ever the real proven commodity in the NFL. You know.
We can certainly go the chart props for sure, but it's something that you're probably going to have to look at and feel comfortable with the closer this game, game time comes. And really, if you don't like anything, like you said, Steve, just because it's there, you don't have to do anything with it. So this could be a tough one to figure out. So I definitely am going to take Mark Andrews. I felt like, to me, that was really just the best play that I could find, and that's what we're about. So in my mind, that's the best play, and that's what I'm going to take.
All right, let's get to the Dolphins and the Bills game. Bills are 7-point favorite, over under 43.5. Lots of snow on the ground. So, I don't know what to say about that. I'm going to look at some kind of alternate under, as long as the weather is going to be crappy and it's going to be cold. But, that's when Buffalo wins by some ridiculous amount of points as well. But I don't know. You could talk me into the under. You could talk me into the Bills. I want the Dolphins to lose for personal reasons, I think, more than anything. That helps the Patriots' cause down the road eventually. Maybe Miami's the team who's left out at the end of the day, which, weird stuff like that happens all the time, every year. So that could be the case. But good game nonetheless. It's going to be some good nighttime entertainment for me anyway. At least I have something to do. Bills minus 7, 43.5. Dave, what do you think?
With the weather being the case, I see an alternate under just all over this game. So that'll probably be something I look to. I haven't taken it yet, but it was certainly a thought last night and this morning that, I always try and do my prep. So we can bring, the best information that we can. And with that weather, you have the Miami Dolphins. Come on, it's a Florida team. Are they really going to produce in a cold, snowy environment? Look at their game last week. They stepped it up. They could not get anything going. Their rhythm was terrible. And with their travel as well, I've been listening and reading to a bunch of that. They've been going through a heck of a travel stretch. And now they've got to go play in a snowy, cold, Buffalo environment. I really don't think that suits them, and that's not going to be very good for them. So I could see a little bit more of a grounded pound here, maybe get some Singletary props rolling. But this game, I took Gabriel Davis for a touchdown at plus 195 as well. You have Bruce, and he's a great target and all. But I tell you, Davis himself is no slouch, and they're going to find them if they do decide to air it out a little bit. I see a lot of run in this game, so that would lead me to the under. But we'll see what happens. But an official play I would have is Gabriel Davis anytime touchdown.
I went ahead. You know what? Davis crossed my mind for sure. I went ahead and see. That's the thing. I want to think under. Something just tells me Buffalo's going to be able to handle their own in this game. I don't know. I could see Diggs even at plus 110 yards or 110 yards or more, 110 yards or more for Stephon Diggs at plus 390. That's kind of High. That's a good number. That's a high number in terms of yards if you're thinking about a weather game. But I don't know. All it takes is one slipping in the snow by someone as well, and that wide receiver's off to the races. And we've seen some crazy high-scoring snow games. That's for sure in the past. So don't think that's an automatic by any stretch of the imagination. But my initial thoughts were this, Dave. I went with Diggs, Chubb, and Justin Jefferson. But I did a little bit of a wild card maneuver just because of the weather. Maybe it's a shorter passing game when they're able to get touchdowns. And I'm going to take a chance with Dawson Knox to get 2 touchdowns. And I put him in the parlay with Chubb and Justin Jefferson. So Dawson Knox, Justin Jefferson, and Nick Chubb all to get 2 touchdowns. And then I also took a chance on this. I took Diggs at 110 yards plus or more, and Justin Jefferson at 150 plus yards or more at a little parlay, and that's a nice payout if those 2 can hit. Besides that, I would think Buffalo can win this game somewhat convincingly in the weather tonight. So you have a last take on that?
That's pretty much what I'm thinking here. That's what I've kind of been thinking since the weather report. So I see Buffalo squeaking this one out. I don't think that's the weather.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get out of here for today. We got kickoff coming up in just a couple of minutes, so go ahead and get your tickets in. We will be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. live, special start time. That was going to be our Christmas party start time, but because of factors beyond our control, health issue-wise, just that little flu bug, whatever the heck it is going around. We'll spare out the audience, and you'll be healthy. Wild card party in a few weeks, but we'll talk to you tomorrow, 8:30 a.m.
I keep